I'm Katie, and as Megan just told you, I'm your host for today's virtual adoption fair. I am a Mickaboo volunteer, just like everybody who's presenting and producing today's event. Before we begin, I'd like to tell you just a little bit about Mickaboo Companion Bird Rescue. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, and we're dedicated to education about care for companion birds and to their rescue and adoption. We are a completely virtual volunteer-based organization with over 450 birds in our care and no paid staff. We rely on donations to be able to serve the birds, and the vast majority of our expenses are related to their care. Our veterinary bills currently average $40,000 to $50,000 a month. These costs are high for a couple of reasons. First of all, newly rescued birds may require medical attention due to previous neglect, failing health, accidents and trauma accrued while they were strays, or injury from other pets, all kinds of things. Second, some of the birds in our system do have chronic medical conditions, and they tend to remain in foster care or hospice situations. So if you're able to help with our veterinary bills and our general support, please do consider donating. I'll provide some information about how to do that at the end of the event. Now, let's talk for a moment about the adoption and foster process, because after all, this is an adoption fair. First, the timing. We want to be really careful about the well-being of our birds, and we're all volunteer, so the process can take a while. It's not just like going to the shelter and picking out a dog and going home. It usually takes several weeks to get through the process, and that's mostly a matter of getting people's schedules aligned. Sometimes it does take longer with a larger bird, but the results are really worth it. And if you feel like you've started this process you see on the screen and you're not getting through it, do ping us. Sometimes things accidentally drop, and a reminder will help us if that happens. So how does the process go? First, you attend our basic bird care class, because parrots are not simple to care for. They require a lot from their human companions. This class is virtual, and it occurs twice a month. So you'll have a chance again about 2 weeks from today, as a matter of fact, if you haven't taken it yet. The next thing is to fill out an application, and then you'll move on to a phone screen. This is a chance for you to chat one-on-one with one of our volunteers. From our end, we're going to be trying to understand you and what you're looking for in a companion bird, and what is your current level of understanding of parrots and their care. But this is also your opportunity to talk with us directly. Then comes the home visit. During the times of COVID-19, we are doing these virtually for the most part, and this is not a white glove test. We just want to help you assess any potential dangers in your home, figure out where might be good places to keep cages, those sorts of things. It's not a checkup on your life, it's developing a plan to be successful with a parrot in your care. Then finally, we'll work with you to figure out which specific Mickaboo bird or birds are a good match for you. Like our home visit, we've made some accommodations for this, where, for example, a bird maybe who you've decided that you're going to adopt might be brought to your door, and a volunteer might set down a secure cage, ring your doorbell, step back so you can pick them up. Similarly, when you are meeting birds, this might be a socially distant outdoor visit with the bird and their parent, their foster parent, in a secure cage outdoors somewhere. It's all about trying to be safe and also make sure that the birds get the best of care and that you can be successful with them. So now we're about ready to meet up with 6 of our Mickaboo birds. Today's stars are Astro and Apollo, a pair of budgies, PJ the green-cheeked conure, Chico, a severe macaw, Gina, an Indian ringneck, and Garuda, an Amazon parrot. So now we're ready to meet Astro and Apollo the budgies. Hi, Astro. Hi, Peggy.
Hi.
Really nice to see you today.
It's a beautiful day here. We're enjoying our sunshine.
Very good. Budgies are my personal favorite parrots, so I'm really happy to start with 2 budgies today. So I believe this is Astro we're looking at right now. Is that correct?
That's correct. This is Astro.
Can you tell us about him?
Sure. So Astro is being very accommodating. Originally, I thought he was a younger bird when I first got him into my foster care. But now I'm wondering if he's older because he likes to spend his afternoons napping. So he's active in the morning and he's really active in the evening, and he takes long naps in the afternoon. So Astro came to me from the, originally he came into the San Jose shelter and then went to the vet for a brief check because he came in with another bird that had a medical issue. And then he came to me within like a day or two. So I've had him about almost 3 months now. And he is healthy. He has 2 toes in the front that are missing their toenails in the front part of the toes, but it doesn't affect his ability to do anything at all. He loves his toys. He likes this little mirror he's sitting by. It spins around, and he's now, in the last couple of days, taken to sitting on top of it so he can make it swing around even better than from down below.
Oh, I see. I see it moving there.
Yeah. Yeah, he picked up on that right away. And I've been working with him a little bit because he's not hand tame. He gets all flustered if I'm allowed to clean and feed him and all that, and that's fine. If I try to do anything else, he flutters around a bit. But I've been working with him, and if I put millet up against the bars right where he is right now, he comes right up now and he will nibble it.
Oh, so he might be on his way to becoming a hand-tamed bird if
he
an
might
adopter is
be
interested in putting in that kind of effort.
Yeah.
So you keep referring
exactly.
to him as he. How do you know that this is a?
So the fleshy area above his beak is called the cere, and if the cere is blue, that means it's a boy. And if it's fleshy colored or tan, it usually means it's a girl, or it could be an immature male as well. So he's very definitely a boy. Are you going to jump on your swing?
Oh.
No? Oh, no. It looked like he was going to there. So he's definitely a male. And his feathers right now he looks a little scruffy right now on his feathers because about 2 weeks ago, if you remember, we had that awful heat wave, and he decided it was a good time to molt. So he lost a whole bunch of his feathers, and the new ones are still kind of coming in, and so they look a little prickly right now.
Okay, got it. So you've mentioned that he's really fond of his mirrors, and also it sounds like he likes his swing. Are there any other toys or activities that he really likes?
Well, he's a pretty good eater. He actually likes greens. And I say actually in a surprised tone because I've had lots of budgies over the years who wouldn't touch a green if their life depended on it. And he likes different types of lettuce. He likes carrot greens. We have a little garden this year, so he's been getting them fresh from the yard. The only one I haven't had him try that he doesn't like is broccoli.
Oh.
But he also likes a swing to play with as well.
He sounds like a really nice little budgie.
And he's very chirpy.
Yes, I think I've heard him a little bit, or I don't know, maybe I'm hearing your other budgie.
Yeah, you're hearing Apollo in the background.
Oh, okay. Before we switch over to Apollo, we do have one question from our audience. Is a 41-inch size cage good for a budgie? And I can speak to that, and I'd like to hear your take too. But in general, if that is the length of the cage, that would be great. If it's if it's 41 inches tall, but it's narrow, that would not be so good because birds like to be up high, and think about many kinds of birds like to spend a lot of time up in trees. And so if the cage is tall but not wide, they don't really have that much space to move around and that they enjoy.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the other thing too is, especially like budgies, you want them to be able to fly in their cage. And so the longer the better. And in the old days, everybody, if you looked, you have these little cages that were cute and put them in the corner of the room. And they were designed for people. They weren't designed for the birds. So the longer the cage, you always want to get the biggest cage you can get. And then the bar spacing is important as well.
Yeah, that's also a good thing to remind people of. So this cage he's in right now is probably a quarantine cage, essentially, from his first days in your house.
Exactly, and he, I'm going to be probably getting another bird to quarantine in the next day or two. So he will definitely be moving to a larger cage, and he'll be moving out into my dining room, where he'll be right next to Apollo.
Okay.
And so he'll be in a bigger cage then. But I tend to like to keep them in something smaller and manageable for their quarantine period, because if they turn out to have medical issues and you try to catch them in a larger cage, it can be very traumatic, and it's easier to do it. And then if you have to medicate them at that point, it's easier to do it in a smaller cage where you can get them easier.
Okay. So I think we're about ready to switch over to Apollo, but we do have one other Astro-specific question while we get to doing that, which is he good with children?
Well, he's not real fond of me putting my hand in, so, but we do come in this room that they live in, and I have fabric in here, and we'll go through the boxes, my sister and I, and the movement doesn't bother him. He's used to that, but I don't have any children around, so I don't know that he would be. I think if he gets used to people, I think he would probably be okay.
Got it. Okay. So maybe now we could take a look at Apollo. And as we do that, I'm going to address one other question we've gotten, which is, aren't mirrors dangerous for birds due to hormones and bonding issue, or is that a myth / a cockatiel thing? So mirrors can distract a lonely bird, and if they're lonely and they fixate on that mirror, it could be certainly detrimental to their happiness and general well-being, but it doesn't really cause hormonal issues. I think that a bird that's really obsessive with a mirror is likely to be one of the typical flock birds, like a cockatiel or a budgie, but it's more a sign that that bird needs some love and attention from another bird of their species. And we do recommend that people keep cockatiels and budgies in pairs or larger flocks, in part for that reason. So Apollo.
Okay, this is Apollo. I'm hoping you can see him okay. And he came to me actually about 2 days prior to Astro. He too came through the San Jose shelter. And he's a healthy male bird. Again, his cere is blue, so we know he's a male. He too likes his greens. And again, he doesn't like broccoli, but he likes the lettuce and the carrot tops and the parsleys and all those kinds of things. And Apollo really likes his swing. And he does kind of have an obsession with his mirror. So I'm hoping that when he moves with Astro into the other room and they can really see each other a lot better, that some of that will go away. The other thing sometimes is if you have birds that start to exhibit things of a breeding kind of thing, the other thing you can do too is you rearrange the cage. And that kind of sometimes will, especially with females, that will can help to break the cycle, because the birds aren't going to want to get nesty if they don't feel safe. And if the building changes or your room changes and your house changes, then you don't quite feel as safe and as comfortable.
Yeah. So you might want to take a little time and reassess before thinking about making a nest and having babies. That makes sense.
Yeah, and the other thing too is to make sure you don't have any nesting material in the cage.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So again, as with Apollo or with Astro, I'm sorry. Is Apollo hand tame at all? How does he feel?
No.
He looks a little stressed out right now, like maybe having the camera pointed at him is not his favorite.
Yeah, he does. And I turned the cage because he usually sits on this table the other direction, and I moved it so the camera could be closer. But yeah, he's a little stressed. He doesn't like change. And it's really interesting because I always thought he would be the one that I would put my hand in the cage with millet in it, and he would just come down because he's very food oriented. He has a little dish that I put his food in, and in the evening he yells at me to come put the food in, and he goes to the dish and he flies off it and goes to the dish, and he's basically telling me it's time for dinner. And I put my hands in with the millet, and he's got the look in his eye that he wants it, but he doesn't want to come down. So I was really, really surprised when Astro went for it and he didn't. But I think he's food motivated, and I think with enough time and patience, I think he would come down to your hand for it.
So we're getting close to the end of our time of visiting with Astro and Apollo. But as we wrap up this interview, what else would you like to tell us about these two budgies, and anything that you think it would be helpful for potential adopters to know about them?
Well, right now they were in separate cages because they did come to me from the shelter. We didn't know anything about their background, so they needed any bird we bring in is quarantined for a period of time, and so they were in the separate cages. And because Astro had come via the vet just to make sure, I definitely wanted them in the separate cages. So at this point, they could go in together or not, depending. But I think they'll do well when they can see each other. Mickaboo is good about making sure that budgies are adopted in pairs, or if you have the only time we do singles is if you already have a bird and you're looking for a buddy for them. And so, yeah, I hear you. Astro's talking in the background now.
Now that we can't see.
So I think that's really good to take into consideration. And I think budgies are my favorite as well. I think they're happy, chirpy birds. And I've had birds that, come and land in your hand. They'll come down and eat food out of your hand, and all that type of stuff. But I've also had some in foster care and some of my own over the years who they were happy to have me deliver the food, but they just wanted to be a budgie and they didn't care about me. And they were happy and they were chirpy and they bring a lot of joy in your life.
Well, thank you, Peggy, for introducing us to Apollo and Astro. Now we'll move on to our next bird, this PJ, the green-cheeked conure. Hi, Sarah. Hi, PJ.
Hi, Peggy.
Hi. As we begin, I want to remind everybody who's watching that they can ask questions about any of the birds, and right now, especially about PJ, in the Q&A tab if you're watching in Zoom, or by commenting on Facebook. So can you start by telling us a little bit about PJ, maybe age and gender to begin with?
Yeah, sure. So here is PJ. So we think he's about 16 years old. It's a little bit of a guess. We think that he's somewhere about there. Could be anything between 12 and 16 based on what we know. He was taken from a shelter somewhere on the peninsula. He was at an animal shelter, and a person adopted him out of there, but then had to surrender him to Mickaboo 8 years later. So Mickaboo took him in February of last year. And so piecing what we know together of him, we suspect that he's somewhere around 15, 16 years old. That's our best guess. Our best guess is also that he's a male. We have not done a test. Mickaboo doesn't spend money on those tests unless it's medically necessary. But based on his background and the health checks that he has had, we're reasonably confident that he's male because he's had a lot of hormonal plucking issues. And if he was female, we would probably have seen some egg laying by now.
Got it. So that was going to be my next question. I see that PJ does have some feather damage. So what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, he's got his own special, unique look going on. And that's his style, and it probably will be his style for the long run. His last home, unfortunately, didn't have a lot of information about hormonal behavior with parrots. And that's unfortunately something that we do see from time to time. PJ was really enjoying running into little dark corners. He was allowed out of the cage, and so he would go and seek out dark corners, and the owner allowed him to do that, thinking that he was feeling insecure and he wanted to hide, and that he felt safe doing that. So it was actually encouraged in the home. Unfortunately, he wants a bit of apple here. Unfortunately for him, that was just encouraging him to exhibit hormonal behaviors. He was nesting. So he was getting excited about having found a nest cavity, and then the owner was encouraging him to go in there, which just elevated his hormonal levels further. And so he got to the point where just through sheer frustration, because of his permanently elevated hormones, he began a pattern of feather destruction, which we do see. Feather barbering and feather plucking is very common in hormonally frustrated parrots. It's completely addressable if you can get to the vet, and they can assess the bird and check there aren't any other medical underlying reasons. They can use Lupron, synthetic hormone shot, or implants to counterbalance that. And using diet, sleep, lighting, and environmental management, there's a lot we can do to try and counterbalance and get hormones leveled out again. But he spent 8 years just really, really hormonal, without much of a break. And so a lot of his feathers at this point probably won't fully grow back. But he used to have some bald spots on his wings and his belly, which have mostly covered over. So he's made some progress. And so, yeah, he's got his own unique style, and he probably will do for the long term, but he has made some improvements as well.
So we have a question from our audience of, is he tame? And I'll start by saying, I see he's out here on your shoulder looking pretty comfortable.
Yeah, he is half tame. Parrots are very highly individualized personalities. They all have their own likes and dislikes about just about everything. And PJ's preference is that he wants to hang out on your shoulder, and he doesn't really want to touch your hands. So if you were to try and approach him with your finger or your hand, I'm not going to bring my hand much closer than this, because he would start to back away down my shirt. And inside his cage, he's even more anxious. He'll start wing quaking and looking very anxious. However, once he's out of the cage, he can fly. So his usual instinct is to kind of fly to a perch point not too far away. Usually he lands on my counter here next to the cage. And then he'll look at me, and I'll approach and just kind of hold my shoulder out, and he flies straight up. And he has hung out on my shoulder literally for hours. In fact, I mean, I get worried that he needs to take a drink of water, he needs to eat something. I take him back to the cage for a break, but the hard part is getting him back in the cage, because once he's on your shoulder, he's just happy as anything, and he just wants to hang out with you. So I've got some apple here just to try and convince him to hang around and not fly away. But he doesn't usually. This is just an added bonus to make it fun for him.
And there he goes.
The moment I said he doesn't fly away, I'll pick him up. Fortunately, PJ, there we go. All right, he's back on my shoulder. Let me just walk back to the camera. He understands English too well. So we got a smart one here, everybody. I apologize for that.
So what kind of activities does PJ enjoy besides sitting on your shoulder and not being interfered with?
His favorite thing is his bells. He's got 2 bells in his cage, and he absolutely loves playing with them. He's got one on the end of a long string, and when he has a crazy moment in his cage, he'll just throw her around, and that's when you'll hear him vocalize a bit more, and he'll say PJ, because that's his favorite thing to say. It's usually kind of just as bedtime is approaching in the afternoon, before dusk, around dinner time, he'll get really worked up and have a big PJ moment, and he'll throw his bell around. His other favorite toy is his jingle bell hat, which is just positioned perfectly above one of his favorite perches that he can wear to the hat, and scritch his head on it a little bit and throw it around as well. So every conure should have at least 1 bell, and PJ is very much on board with that.
So we have an audience question here that's very, very timely in this wildfire season. How would you evacuate him in the event of an emergency, since he's not hand tame?
Yeah, I would approach him with my hands and just scoop him up with both of my hands like a burrito. He wouldn't like it, but I have done that in the past when I've needed to. And he doesn't really bite. honestly. He's nipped me a couple of times at a protest when I've held him for an extended period of time. But that was a long time ago. I haven't done that in ages. And yeah, I mean, I've had a few nervous green cheek conures, and they are known as a species for being nippier. PJ is not nippy. On my shoulder, he hasn't nipped me once, even when I've got something he wants or he wants to go somewhere. He's not a nippy bird. He's got other issues with his feather condition, but he's not nippy. So I would just scoop him up with my hands and place him in the carrier and then move him straight on to the next bird.
So you've told us a lot of wonderful things about PJ. Are there any things he dislikes?
Oh, just really hands. We've also experimented because my husband's here as well, and I'm hanging out in the kitchen here, on the edge of the kitchen. We try not to take them into the kitchen too frequently, but his cage is close by. And when my husband's passing through, he will lean towards my husband's shoulder and happily step over to him. I don't know if that really means he has a preference for men. I think he's just happy hanging out with people, and he's interested in the opportunity to move from shoulder to shoulder, which is nice. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's not really a dislike. Maybe he just got fed up with me because he had been on my shoulder for quite a while.
Novelty.
Yeah, yeah. He just some vegetables he dislikes. I've never really convinced him to eat broccoli, but he's pretty good with carrots. And he loves most fruit. And he'll eat his pellets if they're the only thing in his bowl. But if you offer him treats, then obviously they go first.
Wow, we're 0 for 3 with broccoli here. 3 birds into this.
Always a hard sell.
So we're nearing the end of our time with you and PJ. And as we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to share with us about PJ? Anything that would help a potential adopter to know about him?
I think it's really important that you stay on top of his annual well bird visits and make sure that your avian vet has a profile on him because of his history with hormones. Mm-hmm. I would pay close attention to how you keep him and handle him to make sure you stay in front of that hormonal pattern. And it's very possible that he might need an annual Lupron shot on a regular annual basis just to keep that in check and keep him comfortable and happy. And it'll also stay in front of any behavioral problems as well. So I would expect that that's probably a wise way to take care of him in the future.
One of my birds requires that. And if I don't get the Lupron shot done before she hits her hormonal period, right, it's a lot harder to undo it than it is to just prevent. So
have it in your calendar well before spring hits. You just get in front of it and make sure your avian vet's fully prepped for that and get your appointments in just about then. And then everything should be good. He's really, if you can just give him some time and patience, don't push the hands issue and just enjoy him on your shoulder or your arm. He's a really sweet bird, and he loves to whistle and say PJ. He's got a lot of personality. You just need to give him the space to show it in his own pace.
Well, thank you, Sarah, for introducing us to PJ. Now we'll move on to Chico, the severe macaw. So now here's Chico. Welcome, Chico and Julia and
Annika.
Annika, hello, nice to meet you. What can you tell us about Chico? Can you give us a little introduction?
Sure, this is Chico. He's a severe macaw, which is one of the miniature versions of macaws. However, he is large for a severe, so while he's not the size of like a blue and gold or a scarlet or a green-winged macaw, he's a decent sized little bird. He's 23 years old. He had gone and had lived with a previous Mickaboo foster for many years. She had adopted him, and she passed away last February. So once a Mickaboo bird, always a Mickaboo bird. So a few of us went and picked up birds that were left behind, and Chico was one of them. So he's, before he came to me, he was living in a room with 2 other macaws. He doesn't, I'm trying to say, he likes the ambient attention of other birds. So he really likes to have other birds around, but he is not necessarily interested in playing with them. He's also, because we think he was probably in his cage most of the last year that he was with his previous owner, he's a little cage bound. The first few months I had him, I got him last February. First few months I had him, he would not come out of the cage at all, even though I leave the cage door open almost all day. So having him up on top of the cage right now is a huge step. He started out, he'd come out into the door, and now he's getting enough confidence and getting brave enough that he's actually up on top of his cage now. He talks a lot.
Oh.
He has a big vocabulary. Annika, what are some of the things he says?
Pretty bird, hello, goodbye, good Chico, other things, apple, I think.
Yeah.
Apple. So the important things.
Yes, yes. He also has this one thing he does at night sometimes when I cover him up, and it sounds like, I didn't do it. Which, you know, from a macaw.
Yeah, really important thing.
Yes. Mm-hmm. He also loves to just sit and chatter, and you can't understand what he's saying, but he's carrying on like a full and entire conversation. Right, Chico? What do you think?
He also has a really big maniacal laughter. It's very evil. It's rather funny. Yeah. He also really likes dancing to Sabrina Carpenter whenever I have that playing. So yeah, he's pretty fun.
Yes.
All right. So we've got a couple audience questions here. Is he good with kids? So yeah. Annika, you're not quite a kid, but
yeah,
and does he allow handling?
I would not put him in a home with small children unless you were really, really cautious about it. What I've found with severes, this is my second severe that I've had, is that they do tend to be much more reserved and cautious than some of the others. Like the Hans macaw, which is one of the other miniature macaws, they're very gregarious, outgoing, they like to hang with people. These guys are much more reserved. I think they're a better adult bird. And honestly, he does not step up for me willingly. And he definitely picks his people.
Yeah, he is bonded with the older sibling in his household, and they were 18, so.
Right. And we think he prefers men. Now, that's a little hard for me to justify because there are no men that live in this household, but except Chico. We had another Mickaboo volunteer staying with us for a couple of weeks while they were evacuated during the fires up in the Santa Cruz Mountains. And we discovered that he kind of likes Jonathan, who's the first man that we've really had in the house for a long time. So I think he kind of leans towards men, but he definitely, like with my oldest child, he would step up for them. But it was still very scary. Like they couldn't, if he stepped up for them, they could go a few feet away from the cage, but then he would panic.
Oh, they like sitting on the, Chico likes sitting on the couch with them.
Right, which is just a few feet away from his cage. So basically, he's most secure if he can at least be holding onto his cage a little. Yeah. This is his favorite toy.
Yeah. See, he's
Bell ball. What do you think? Oh, you know.
You want the almond?
No, now he wants to eat my face. He is hormonal, and we have just just had an implant put in him at the vet for a hormone shot. It was a hormone implant, and we're trying to tone down some of the hormonal issues, like you're seeing here, like he wants to eat my face. Whereas he was not like this with my oldest child, because he had picked them. So, but with me, yeah. So anyway, but I say we do. So the vet and I really think that the implant is going to make a difference, but it's just been recently that we have done the implant, and because the implant doesn't resolve the hormones already in the system, it sometimes takes some time to get that out. The implant will just keep him from producing more excessive hormones. So we're working on it, kind of a work in progress. The one thing I will have to say about him, he's probably the easiest macaw I have ever had, in the sense that he doesn't want to leave his cage. Yeah, I've had other macaws, you know, that will go wander around the house and eat everything they can. Not Chico. So Chico has not chewed up any furniture. He has not chewed up anything. Yeah, that's right. You haven't chewed up anything. I know. It's crazy, isn't it? And he's, other than his talking like this, yeah, I know. Other than his talking, he's really relatively quiet. Sometimes he will, sometimes like morning and evening, most birds will do a flock call. And so he sometimes will do that, but honestly, it's not even that consistent and it's not loud. My conures, which are much smaller birds like PJ, the one you just saw, are much louder than this guy is. So if you're concerned about a noise perspective, this guy's good. I say he is low maintenance in the sense that, at least right now, because his favorite person is not in the house, he doesn't, I sit in here with him lots. In fact, I do a lot of my work in the bird room so I can be with him. And he likes having me there. He wants me in the room, but then he's not interested in coming over to cuddle. He's not interested in stepping up, but he wants me in the room with him. And sometimes if I've been working in the room with him a lot and then I go to leave the room, he'll start yelling, hello, hello. He's calling for me to come back. Yeah.
So he really does have an interest in people. There's just certain terms that he wants to.
Yeah,
that's right.
Sometimes I'll be like singing and dancing around the house, and he loves joining in. He doesn't sing a lot, but he loves dancing.
Got it.
He also
we do have another audience question about Chico, which is, do we have an idea how old he is?
He's 23.
Okay, wow, yeah. I guess with the amount of history he has with Mickaboo, we know more about him than some birds.
Right. Yeah. And for him, he'll probably live to be, I mean, as long as his health is in good condition, he could live to be 40, 45, 50 years old easily. Mm-hmm. So anyway, he's middle age as this variety of macaw goes.
Okay. We have just a couple minutes left. So I wondered if there's anything else you would like to share with Chico, and particularly, are there things you would want a potential adopter to know, or a kind of home you think that he would thrive in?
I think he would do well in a house that perhaps has both a male and a female, just because I think that would give him good balance, but that's not necessary. Certainly one person could adopt him and be just fine. He also, while he doesn't want to step up, he doesn't want to cuddle, he does like to have people. So, and he also likes the ambient attention of other birds as well. So there are other birds in the room and he really enjoys having them. Although he doesn't directly interact with any of them, he just likes to be able to hear them and talk to them and that sort of thing. So, yeah.
He likes fresh food, like fruit, so like apples, bananas, grapes. Yeah, he really likes it.
We're working on the veggies. He's really not quite there yet.
For 4 on broccoli today.
This guy is. We have not convinced him on the broccoli yet. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He also really likes his toys, like not just the bell. There's a couple others in his cage that he really likes just playing with, because he's a very tactile bird inside.
Got it.
Yeah. And he loves his bells. He likes to ring his bells. He's on Supreme Naturals, so that's good. He's very solid on those. So you won't have to convert him to pellets or anything. He's right on track with that. So,
right.
Is that right? And his favorite treat is almonds in the shell. He has a very particular way of eating them. So, they have
secret weapon for training.
He likes going in at it.
Yeah, he kind of eats like a little egg out of the, in Europe where they eat the egg out of the shell in the little cup. Mm-hmm. That's kind of how he does his little almond, and he's very precise about it. So
neat.
Yes. I know.
Well, thank you, Julia and Annika, for introducing us to Chico.
I think he's really a sweet boy, especially with whoever he chooses as his person. Mm-hmm. And I am forever entertained by him. I just love, I can sit and listen to him chatting and talking all day. he's very fun in that sense. So
Neat. Okay, so next we're going to move on to Gina, the Indian ringneck. Hello, Gina. Welcome, Amy.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you two?
We're just fine. Gina is back up on her perch, so you can see her pretty clearly, I hope.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she looks good. I understand that Gina is currently recovering from an injury, and she actually looks a lot different in a good way than in the promotional photo that we used for this virtual adoption fair. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
She's rehabbing very well, I think, and she's actually up for adoption now, just as of recently. She is an Indian ringneck. We know that she's female because the females do not have the typical ring around the neck that the males have. She was actually found in a box on a street in San Francisco in the Mission District. And some kind person picked up the box, saw the bird in it, I guess. I'm not clear on the absolute details, but took her to the shelter, which transferred her to a vet. And that found that she had a broken leg. And at that time suggested that the leg should be amputated. One of our Mickaboo volunteers asked if we could get a second opinion. And so we did. And that vet thought that the leg could be saved. So she still has both legs, and the break is healing. It does not seem to be bothering her. She climbs around her cage, and you can see she's perching on both feet. And she seems to use both feet equally. She doesn't seem to favor one or the other. So we're very pleased. She, when she came in, she had a bald spot on the top of her head. I assume she had perhaps been attacked by another bird. I'm not sure. But that is growing back in now. It's almost completely feathered. And her wings had been clipped very, very severely. So those feathers are still growing in. You can see she has 2 or 3 primaries on her left side, which is the side facing the camera. But on the right side, she has no primary feathers. And you can see that she doesn't have a tail yet. She came in with 2 or 3 tail feathers, but they were very scraggly and in very bad condition, and she has molted those out. So we're hoping that she grows in new tail feathers sometime soon. So at the moment, she cannot fly, of course, but she does very well climbing around her cage and with her toys.
So we're getting an audience question, and I think it might in part be triggered by her lack of a tail, but someone is asking if she would do well with a female lovebird.
I honestly do not know the answer to that. I would have to defer to somebody who knows lovebirds.
Okay, then I'll take this one because I have a lovebird.
Okay, then you.
I would definitely not cage them together. They might make good companions from a distance in separate cages and possibly with separate out time as well. Lovebirds, for their size, can be tremendously aggressive. They're really strong. And ringnecks are actually quite a bit bigger than they are, which you can't tell from this picture because all the proportions of her body look similar without her long flight feathers and her long tail. She's a much bigger, stronger bird. And so given the way that lovebirds can be aggressive, you could end up with one bird or the other getting really seriously injured or killed. And we just got Gina patched up here. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
But not good roommates. And we have another question now of how is Gina with children who are a little on the older side, like ages 6 and up?
You know, my children are both grown up and out of the house, and I got her just about 7 or 8 weeks ago. So during the time of COVID, there haven't been any children in the house, no visitors. And so I honestly don't know. She is still kind of skittish. She, flutters around when I try to put my hand in, to clean her cage or get her fresh food or water. I do think that she is calming down. I think she's just basically feeling better than she was a few weeks ago. And she's calming down. She's getting more vocal, which is wonderful. She has a very pleasant little chirp. But I honestly don't know how she would be with children. I think it would require adults working with her at first to make her more companionable. She does have a good beak though, so I'm sure if she wanted to bite, she could, injure somebody.
Yeah. Another question from the audience. Do we know how old she is? I know you mentioned that we think she's young.
We do think she's young, but no, I do not know how old she is.
Okay. What does Gina eat? Does she have any favorite foods?
Yes, she likes the Nutrient cake, the Lefebvre's Nutrient cake, which I also give my budgies. Mm-hmm. She likes birdie bread, which I make at home that has a lot of sweet potato, coconut oil, orange juice, and different kinds of seeds and grains, quinoa, oatmeal, and so on. She likes that quite a bit. She likes fresh corn. She loves romaine lettuce, a nice wet dark green leaf of lettuce. I always hang in her cage. I don't think you can see it here, but she loves nibbling on that. Mm-hmm. And she is a broccoli eater. Out of all of our group, she is a eater. She likes that. And apples and oranges she gets. Various different fruits, vegetables. She's been a good eater, and I think that has helped. Having a good nutritious diet has probably helped her.
Mm-hmm. So the pictures I've seen of Gina earlier were in a hospital cage, and now I see she's graduated to a more regular cage, still small, but yes. What kind of special care are you providing for her right now? And do we expect her to continue to have special needs?
I think that when she recovers everything and she grows in all of her feathers, as far as I know, she will be fairly normal, for a bird, although I would have to ask our veterinarian about the cage, the bottom of the cage. In the very beginning, she was in a cage with very, very low perches, and the floor of the cage was an old bath towel covered with very soft pieces of flannel. And that was so that if she hopped or came down off of her very low perch, that she would have a soft landing. And I don't feel that that's as necessary now. It's been 7 weeks. And so the bottom of her cage right now is just several layers of newspaper, not just one layer, but several layers of newspaper. So there is a little bit more cushion. And whoever adopts her may want to keep that, but that's a very easy kind of accommodation. Once she grows into her feathers and wants to fly, obviously she'll need a bigger cage. But this seems appropriate right now for her abilities and her ability to get around.
Yeah. Having had some birds with severe wing clips myself, although I've never had one who also had lost a tail, but as her feathers grow back in, she's also going to have an easier time balancing.
Yes.
So that'll also help with some of the needs of padding the bottom of the cage. But yeah, staying in touch with a vet to design the best environment and care for her will be a good idea.
Right.
Let's see. I see she has a few toys in her cage. Is she starting to play with toys now? Does she have any favorites?
Yes, she is. She likes to hang on the side of the cage and peck at things and climb on things. I don't have very many toys in there right now. I wanted her to be visible for this adoption fair. Yeah. In the very beginning, I was told, don't give her toys, don't give her, anything. It was basically just a very simple cage with a couple of very low perches for food and water bowls. But she's getting a lot more active now, and she looks a little sleepy now, but she's nicely visible. She does to climb on the sides of the cage, and she's definitely a climber. She likes to get on her little swing there and move around a lot. But I think she's really improving. It's very gratifying to see her getting better.
Yeah, she's a real Mickaboo success story.
Yeah. Sweet.
So we just have about another minute left. Is there anything else you would like to share about Gina? Anything that you would want prospective adopters to know about her that we haven't already covered?
Just that whoever adopts her will need to approach her slowly and carefully. I think she was probably psychologically traumatized by being put in a box and essentially discarded. That's got to be a very difficult thing. And so I think she's still a little nervous around people, but I do think that working with her slowly and calmly, somebody would be able to make her a very fine companion bird. It's amazing that she's now just sitting so close to the front of the cage. Even just a few days ago, if I came close to her, you know, from the outside of the cage where she was inside, she walked away to the far side. And she's getting much more comfortable now, I think.
Well, thank you so much, Amy, for introducing us to Gina and for the hard work that you and her vet have done to get her looking so healthy and on such a good path. We really appreciate it. Now we're going to move on to our final bird for today, Garuda, the Amazon parrot. Hello, Garuda. Hello, Cindy.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Yay.
Okay.
Thank you. I was trying to think what I could remember about Garuda, but I would love for us, all of us to hear.
What we know about Garuda, we're not sure whether we call her a she, but she's never been sexed or anything. So it's possible that that Garuda is also a he. What we know about Garuda, are you going to stay in frame or not? Come on, honey. Go on up. Go on up. She's like, I know you're talking about me. You said Garuda. So what we know about her is that she's, and I'm going to say she's 18 to 20 years old. She was with somebody for a long time, but he had to get named John, and he had to give her up because he got Alzheimer's. So that's how she ended up in Mickaboo. And she was with a foster for a year. So we do know that, and that foster had 3 small children. And so we know that she liked to play with the children and, you know, and that kind of thing. So we know she's good with kids, actually. She seems to have a slight preference for women, but she does okay with my son and my husband as well. And in terms of age, you know, so 18 to 20, Amazons and parrots of this size, they tend to live usually 40 to 60 years. And I looked up yellow crowns, and what I found about them is their lifespan is 60 to 100 years. So she's actually a very young bird, you know, probably just getting into adolescence, if that. And the other thing is that she's a really sweet bird. I don't know if you can see, she's beautiful. She's got these beautiful red epaulets, the beautiful yellow crown, and the red wings. And she's got those flashy yellow, those flashy orange eyes. And she just is a real, she's a real sweetie so far, that I've, you know, in my experience with her.
I saw that for a moment there, she was kind of leaning forward and fluttering her wings a little bit, which in my birds often means kind of like, pick me up, I want a little more attention. Is she a hand-tame, people-friendly bird?
So she is, she does like to come out, and the trick that I'm sort of balancing right now is, of course, during quarantine period, she was in her own room for a month, and she seemed like a very quiet bird. I would let her out of the cage. She'd sit on her cage door. She will come on my arm and climb up my shoulder. You know, of course, all Amazons, you know, all parrots do bite, but she didn't seem, you know, she doesn't seem to be, you know, too bitey in that sense. And she certainly will get on a perch, go back into her cage. You know, if I put an almond in her cage, she'll go right back in. So she's handleable in that way. Now, what I did find is after the quarantine period, I have 4 other birds. I've got 2 conures, a gray and a Goffins. And she really likes her cage is in between the gray and the Goffins during the day. And she likes to go back and forth in her cage between the 2, depending on who's doing what. And if one goes down to the bottom of the cage, she'll go down to the bottom of the cage. But I did find if I let her out when the other birds, even if the other birds are in their cages, she becomes quite aggressive. She will fly over to their cages and posture. So I haven't quite figured out if she's going to get along with them or she just needs to be let out in her own room at her own, you know, by herself, which is what I'm doing right now to give her outside time. Yeah.
That could potentially be quite dangerous, which I know you know, but just also saying it for our audience. So, yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to do that. We don't want anyone hurt. And, you know, that was a one-time thing that was like, okay, you know, we're going to put everybody else in their cages so they're safe. And I mean, within 2 seconds, she was out of her cage and flew over. She's flighted right now. And so she just flew right over. It's like, okay, that isn't going to work. Grab her real quick, you know, watched her completely. But she likes to, as you can see, she likes to play with her bell. She's quiet for a good chunk of the day. She'll just kind of go, "Rrr, rrr, rrr," but then she has her loud times like any Amazon, and she can crank it up. And so, you know, when one bird starts going, you know, she joins in just like the others and can get quite loud. But she's pretty quiet most of the day other than her noisy times.
We do have a couple audience questions, and I think you've covered them, but I just want to be sure. Does she step up? And it seems like she's a little better maybe with perches than hands to step up.
Yeah, she does step up. She will step up on my arm. It's just I have not figured out how tame she is yet, and so I'm still a little cautious around her. But again, I do know that the person who fostered her for the last year, she said, you know, she would play with her kids, so she was quite tame with them. And I think with me, it's more because I've got to make sure the other birds aren't around. And when like right now, she wants to go back and she wants to be with the other birds. I mean, she knows they're in the other room, so she's down on the bottom of her cage, pining to go see the other birds.
Yeah,
that's what she's doing right now.
Oh, yeah, I see her looking over that way. Yeah, so the other parts of these audience questions, I know you just covered. I'm just gonna make sure everyone hears it. She is in her early 20s with a lifespan of somewhere up to 100, so she is a young bird. And she is good. She has been good with children in a previous home, and it seems like she gets on
and she actually,
with everyone in your home too.
Yeah, and she actually, one of the things she does is she sounds like an electronic toy sometimes. She has this kind of sound, and I'm like, okay, I know you got that.
Somebody's video games.
She's got like a drill sound where she goes, and then she'll also say, "Hi."
Oh.
Will you say that to her? Will you say hi? She's not right now.
I see her looking over to where those other birds are. So yeah, it seems like she does enjoy her bird companions. And let's see, does she need any kind of special care?
No. No, she's perfectly healthy. And one of the things that she completely loves, and you know, we talk about what they love and don't love. She loves showers. Oh my gosh. You get a spray bottle, and I will spray her. She'll go through like 2 whole bottles of spray until she's sopping wet. She likes to pretend like she's in the jungle, and she gets completely wet, and she just loves it. And even after all that, she'll go down to her water bowl and splash some more. She just totally loves a shower. Yeah, it's so fun to watch her.
I know some birds do that, like when they hear vacuum cleaners and such too. Is she one of those who'll start dunking in her bath when she hears a vacuum cleaner running? I think it must sound like a waterfall or something.
Yeah. But she
Oh.
definitely enjoys a good shower.
Another audience question. When she bites, is it big bleeding bites or little nibbles?
When Amazons bite, my experience has been they don't nibble. I mean, of all the Amazons I've had, and I've fostered 3 so far, and I've had 2 of my own, Amazon bites don't tend to be nibbles. I mean, if they bite, they bite. And that's one of the things about Amazons. And parrots of this size in general, they do have bigger beaks and they do have bigger bites.
Yeah. Well, that explains why you're kind of feeling your way as she settles into your home. How long has she been with you now?
So I've had her about 2 months. So the first month was in quarantine, and so she's been kind of with the family for a month. And so we're still sometimes I'll still put her in her own room at night, the room that she was quarantined in, just because she feels much more comfortable in there than in the night room with the other birds. But she loves, like during the day, like you can see, she's still like, she knows, I know they're out there. I know they're in the other room. I mean, all the other birds are in the other room. But she will, like I said, if she's by herself as well, she'll just come right out of her cage. And the other thing she likes, although she probably won't do it now because she's, not in that kind of mood, she'll put her head down, and she loves a good head scratch. So she'll put her head down, and I'll scratch her on the back of the head, and she loves that.
She sounds like a really nice bird.
She seems really sweet. And so the other thing is in terms of food. So she eats, well, when she came to me, she was eating just sunflower seeds and fruit. So within 2 days, I'm like, no. So she pretty quickly switched to the Zupreme fruity flavor because, she likes the fruit, and that seemed like a good transition. She doesn't eat the greens, but she's a real picky eater. So she's eating that, and I'm trying slowly to get some Harrisons thrown in there as well. But I'm really happy that she's on pellets. And then she likes fruit, like she likes orange and, apple and things like that. I give her corn and, the greens, and she doesn't eat any vegetables yet, but, I'm working on that transition. So, I'll be giving her less fruit and more greens. And I suspect, someday she's going to try one of them and say, okay, that's all right. But, she doesn't even eat carrots. And most of my birds will, they'll eat carrots and corn in terms of the first fruits that they eat.
Do you feel like she watches your other birds and checks out they're eating those vegetables?
Yeah. I mean, she watches them, that's how one of our other Amazon fosters started eating Harrisons, because they're like, no, you're eating it. Okay, well, I guess I could I guess I could do that. And, we're trying some things relative to, getting her to eat it and that kind of thing. But we figure that'll be over time.
Sure.
But again, she really likes to watch the other birds. Like I said, if one bird's down on the bottom of the cage, she goes down, and they all go outside when the air's nice, which hasn't been lately. But when the air's nice, they all go outside in their cages, with me and the birds, and they all kind of get lined up together, and they all love it. I mean, they just love to be together and do that.
Great. So we're just about out of time. Is there anything else that you would like us to know about Garuda? Anything that a potential adopter should know that we haven't covered?
I don't think so. I'm still getting to learn her a little bit. I think she would do fine. And I mean, probably in a home that, she has been in a home without birds, I think a good chunk of her life so far. So this is new to her, being in a home with birds. And I think if you do have other birds, you just have to be really careful about, when you let her out, if you let her out with other birds, and she might need to be one of those birds that you let out in her separate area, certainly for a while. And I don't know how, if she's ever going to calm down around that. And then the other thing is she would do, again, like I said, she would do fine with both men and women. She did have a man who owned her, and then she seems to be fine with everybody in my household. She'll let my son, who's 20, scratch her on the back of the head too. So she seems to be fine with both men and women.
Great. Thank you, Cindy, for introducing us to Garuda. She makes a terrific last guest to round out this virtual adoption fair. So
great. And I'll be updating her profile as well online with some new pictures. She just doesn't really show her beautiful red right now. And I've got some new pictures and some new stuff to add to her story.
Okay, well, I hope that we have some viewers who will be taking an interest in that. So thank you very much. There were a couple of questions that I had missed earlier that I wanted to go back and address. One was someone asking if Gina is hand tame, and not at this time, but it sounds like she has a lot of promise to be a great companion in that way. And also I had missed some people asking about the ages of Astro and Apollo, and both came in as stray birds, so we don't really know their ages. They are both definitely adult male budgies, but budgies reach sexual maturity at something approaching a year old, so it's hard to say. Let's see. So now that is all the birds we're meeting today, and I believe that most of our questions have been answered here. So If you fell in love with any of these birds, please do contact us. If you haven't started the adoption process yet, you can get started by signing up for our basic bird care class. You can find information about it at mickaboo.org/basic bird care class. It's offered every 2 weeks. If nobody here seems like the right bird, take a look at all the others on our website, mickaboo.org. There are lots of birds. We have 450 birds available, and they all need good forever homes. And as you've heard today, there's just an incredible amount of diversity among our flock, among the species, the temperaments, the people that they're known to have gotten on with, how they feel about other pets in the home, all kinds of things. You've seen just a fraction of that diversity here. So thank you so much for joining us here today. Just a few things before we sign off. First of all, really thank you for spending part of your Sunday afternoon with us at this virtual adoption fair. We're trying to do this kind of event regularly. We are planning another one in October, and you can look at the events page of our website, mickaboo.org, to find out more about all of our events. So the basic bird care classes, as we talked about, next adoption fair, everything. October 24th is the date for the next one. Mark your calendars. It'll be a whole new set of birds. Second, please do remember that we're donation funded. And you can support this work of parrot rescue, including the care for birds like Gina, who we met today, at mickaboo.org/donate-funds or at paypal.me/mickaboo. We would really be grateful for your support, and no amount is too small or too large. Third, if you have any ideas or comments about how we can improve for next time, you can mention them in the Q&A tab or send us an email. We're definitely always looking to improve. Last but not least, I'd like to extend a huge thank you to all the foster parents and birds who came to join us today on video, and to all the other volunteers who provided technical support and kept this event running. It's a lot of work behind the scenes, and there's so many people making it happen. If you stick with us through our credits, you can see who they all were, and we'll keep monitoring our Q&A for a bit longer in case you have questions we haven't answered yet. It's really a pleasure and an important thing to be able to speak with you about these birds. So definitely go ahead and pop any questions into Q&A. We're definitely looking forward to being able to work with you if there are birds that you would like to meet and to adopt.